Namaste and a warm welcome to the Ex-Christian Show, the insider view of Christianity from the outside. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot miss today's show. It's a talk between a rabbi, a practicing Christian, and an ex-Christian. Rabbi Tovia Singer is a practicing Jew and is better known for founding Outreach Judaism. This is an international organization dedicated to countering the efforts of missionaries and fundamental Christian groups to convert Jews. He's a world-renowned public speaker and lectures over 200 times each year around the globe in countries like North America, South America, Europe, and Israel. He's also the author of the book, Let's Get Biblical. Why doesn't Judaism accept the Christian Messiah? And he's a frequent guest on television and radio shows. He has vast knowledge of topics such as anti-Semitism, Holocaust revisionism, Jewish and Christian history, and of course, Christian missionaries. So he has had numerous interviews on radio and television over the years, and he continues to teach thousands, bringing back many to Judaism. And our next guest is Jerome. Now, Jerome needs no introduction on this show, but for those of you that are just tuning into my show, Jerome Anto is a practicing Christian from India and founder of Hindustani Christians, a group of Indian nationalist Christians. Jerome, as we all know, is dedicated in countering the efforts of church in general and radical Christian evangelicals in particular, who target the gullible Hindus for conversion. Jerome has been one of the most provocative, powerful, and vocal Indian Christian against the business called conversion. His efforts of late has been to educate the Hindus on this conspiracy called churchianity. So welcome to the talk, Rabbi Singer and Jerome.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Rabbi, yesterday I was actually watching you on a podcast called Myth Vision with Dr. Robert Price. Mm-hmm. And you were saying something like, oh, so this is how you earn your living? Prepare 2 or 3 minutes something and just let it roll. And this is how you earn your living. So just to tell you, that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So in fact, I haven't even prepared the 2 to 3 minutes something today. I haven't even spent that kind of time before coming to the show. In fact, what I'm going to do is pitch the two of you against each other and let you fight, and I'll sit back and enjoy the brawl.
I deeply appreciate
I'm just
that.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
You have no idea how happy that makes me.
Oh, really? Okay. So
because
you are the fighter guy,
Israel's such a large country, such a large democracy, and India is such a tiny country. So, of course, that gives me an enormous advantage. After all, you have lakes that are bigger than our country. So I really, really am very grateful for that honor and distinction. Why don't you just set the whole Indian country against me? No, I appreciate that very much. And then we'll move on to smaller things like China. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Size of the country doesn't matter, because I've seen you in several of your shows, your debates with such apologists like William Lane Craig Evans, and then people like that. So I don't think, even if, yes, Israel is not even as big as the largest lake of India, Rabbi Tovia Singer is indeed big fighter. Yeah. So I'll give that to you. But what I'm really going to do is I will let the two of you talk, because the kind of work that you are doing is what connects you both. So I'm sure Jerome has prepared a little more than just 2 or 3 minutes something for you. So we'll just let it rolling.
Sure.
So Jerome, I want you to open the talk.
First of all, thank you so much for arranging this talk. And Rabbi, I am ever grateful to you for coming over the show. I have been wanting to talk to you for the last 1 year. So, because I've been going through what Israel has gone through over the years, over the thousands of years, and I've seen my own country going through a similar situation. So, my first question is, Rabbi, I would like to know what are the challenges that Israel has gone through in the last few years, few decades, ever since 1948 when Israel was formed, and how the evangelicals have somehow tried to seep in into Israel and been able to uh, uh, remove the carpet from the feet. So I wonder what kind of challenges has Israel gone through.
Okay, so first of all, Israel and India are celebrating 29 years of diplomatic relations. And in recent years, Israel and India are enjoying a very, very close relationship. But I technologically, economically, on many, many fronts. India and Israel also have a lot of common interests. But I confess to you that I'm not a diplomat. I don't represent the government. I'm a rabbi. I'm a theologian. So that's the area that I can focus on very easily with you. As it turns out, Israel has a complex relationship with evangelical Christians. For 2,000 years, the church regarded the Jewish people as a people who once were chosen by God, who had a unique covenant with the Almighty, but the church insisted that that covenant was abrogated, was destroyed, and the church has superseded Israel. The church has replaced Israel. In fact, theology is called replacement theology, and the church is the new Israel. It's also called covenant theology. And the Jews have lost all their blessings, and Augustine takes us further in his work called The City of God, his magnum opus, that in fact the reason why Jews are around altogether is so that people see the low state of the Jewish people, see their deplorable position in society, and realize as a living memorial of what happens to the people who are responsible for killing Jesus. And Augustine had good reason to think that way. It's because the Christian Bible portrays the Jews exactly that way. And that's how not just the Roman Catholic Church believed and espoused, but that's how the Orthodox Church believed. And the earliest reformers were all virulent anti-Semites, from Luther and Calvin and Bucer, they all were. And they all believed this. But something dramatically changed in the church in the 19th century, where there's a man, his name was John Nelson Darby, had a new view. And the new view is that the Jewish people have a promise from God that cannot be undone, cannot be abrogated. And in fact, God still has a covenant with the Jewish people, and the Jews must return to the land of Israel. He was born in England, and he preached in the United States, and his ideas were spread by very famous people like Cyrus Schofield, Moody, and others. As it turns out, today, the evangelical Christian movement comprises about 1/5, 20% of the United States, largest voting bloc, and they're very, very pro-Israel, very pro-Israel. There's only one catch, because there's no free lunch. And the catch is that they are very pro-Israel, but they also are very committed to converting the Jewish people to Christianity. It is, in fact, these very same people who are very pro-Israel. And you have these kinds of people in India. And you have these sort of people in the Far East, where I used to be a rabbi in Indonesia. It is these people who have this view who are the most committed to converting the Jews to Christianity. To our people, this is an existential threat. And therefore, it's vital for us to respond to these very serious charges that are made against the Jewish faith. And my role is to respond to very, very serious accusations against Judaism, because while on one hand, these evangelical Christians are very pro-Israel, meaning for the country, and they are very supportive in every way, economically, of the state of Israel. On the other hand, they are very committed to evangelizing and destroying the Jewish faith. And that's why I have to respond to their very, very aggressive programs to evangelize the Jewish people.
So, Rabbi, my next question to you is, the population of Christians in India is just 2%, suppose 2%. And I'm sure it is a similar such percentage in Israel as well. But how come they are so powerful? How are they so powerful? That's my question.
So the question is, how are Christians so influential?
Yes.
In both of our countries.
Yeah, because in India, though they say the percentage is small, they are able to influence policies, arm twist government. They can do the way they want to. And I'm sure you had such experiences in Israel.
Let me just tell you this. So it's really here a very, very different, completely different situation. What's going on in Asia, you're in South Asia or in Southeast Asia, is that just Christians in general are in high places of government and are very successful economically, and as a result, there's a lot of influence. The same thing was in Indonesia. Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, 240 million Muslims, but you can be sure that the Christians, roughly about 30 million, have an enormous influence because economically they're doing very well. I also confess to you again, I'm a rabbi, I'm a theologian. I'm not really an expert in the makeup of the Indian government and the influence that powerful people have in your country, but I suspect it's probably the same. But that's not my area of expertise. Here in Israel, it's a little different because we're really surrounded by countries that are less than friendly. Israel is surrounded by, imagine having, Lebanon in the north and Iran's proxy, Hezbollah there. And then you have Syria. I don't need to tell you about Syria. And then Israel has a relationship with Jordan, has sort of a cold peace with Jordan. But if you go further east, you hit Iraq and Iran, and there's a troublesome relationship there. So Israel has always felt under siege. The Jewish people has felt under siege for good reason. And in fact, the Jewish state emerged out of the ashes of the Holocaust. So as a result of that, Israel does cherish any friend they can find. It should be noted that 35 years ago, Israel didn't have a relationship with India, or had a horrible relationship with India. It was a nightmare. India, we're going back a generation ago, we used to host the large conferences on third world countries, and it was basically it was like target shooting. Israel was under attack constantly. Israel and India today are the closest of friends, but alliances change. Here in Israel, there is a feeling that it is evangelical Christians that are Israel's best friends, and I'm very grateful for their support for Israel, but not at any price. I'm not willing to have my family, my people, my nation spiritually destroyed by these evangelicals because they support American military support of Israel. That's not a price that we're willing to pay. So these evangelicals are very, very well connected here, not because of finances as much as you would find in the East, but they're very well connected to the government because they're very close to Washington. And as a result, they had just enormous amount of influence here in Israel. And thank God I have been here in Israel for a year and a half and have changed the map here. So their influence is now receding, and Israelis are becoming more and more aware of the danger that these missionaries pose.
Yes, we in India face a similar or slightly worse situation because we were ruled by the Europeans for almost 500 odd years, and we are going to reach 100 years of independence in the next 20 years, and there's a scare that we are going back to what we were prior independence.
There are still so many, especially Christians, that say that colonizing of India was a great thing, because there are even statements put out, something to the effect that the reason we are wearing clothes today is because of the missionaries or the colonizers.
Absolutely.
Not just English medium schools or hospitals.
Absolutely.
The very reason that we are wearing clothes is because we were colonized at one time. So those are the kind of statements that are peddled.
Yeah, and that's what we've been carrying on our shoulders, which is not true, because the Indian civilization also is a very old civilization, and it has stood the onslaught of Christianity and Islam for many years. So keeping that aside, my next question is this: is it important to convert to Christianity to get salvation? Because that's exactly what is being preached to the gullible Hindus, saying that you're going to be damned if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, if you don't get baptized.
Yeah, so it's really good to go to heaven. The idea is very attractive. What makes the evangelical Christian message so dangerous is what they're saying is, if you want to be healthy, smoke cigarettes. That means the idea of going to heaven or something really terrific happening after you die, that's great. That's the good part. The problem is they're selling a counterfeit message. They're telling people, if you want to be healthy, eat a lot of fatty foods. If you want to be healthy, take drugs. It's the worst possible advice someone could be given. Now, as it turns out, people are very concerned about the afterlife. They are. People are afraid of dying, petrified, and they don't know what happens on the other side of the grave. And it's the claim of going to heaven is fantastic for a false religion because it's unfalsifiable. It can't be tested. You can't examine it. You can't go to a cemetery, dig up dead people, and ask them what happened to you. So it's exploiting a fear that people have, what happens after you die, and then you can't test out if it's going to deliver. So this is a major problem. In contrast, in the Torah, in the Jewish Bible, there's never a threat of going to hell and never a promise of going to heaven. There is such a place. There is an afterlife and a resurrection, and it's mentioned very, very briefly. But the God of Israel says that if you're not loyal to me, it's going to stop raining. And food is not going to grow. Your land is not going to be fertile. You'll go into exile. I'll bring you back. So if you're God and you're writing scripture, you're not going to appeal to something that happens after you die, because after you die, it's too late to repent. After you die and you see hell, then what good is it? You can't do anything any longer. But if I say, look, if you smoke cigarettes, so what's going to happen is you're going to start coughing. You're going to feel very, very sick. You're not going to be able to walk anymore. You're going to be out of breath. And that's what happens to people. They start feeling really bad. And you know what they do? They quit smoking. They quit doing drugs. And you know what happens? They feel a lot better. So I want to just contrast the Christianity with my faith. And that is that Christianity is promising heaven or hell. This is in no way matches any message found in the Hebrew Bible which they claim they believe in. There's no threat like that. The resurrection is mentioned, but it's not as a threat. How would you threaten someone about something that you can't test, you can't see? The Torah was written by God, and therefore God really can control the weather. He really can control the fertility of the ground. He really is in control of history, and that's what you find in the Jewish scriptures. And what people really ought to do is, when they're confronted with these claims by evangelical fundamentalist Christians, the way to see through it theologically is to compare it to what you find in the Jewish Bible. And what you discover is that the church has altered the Jewish Bible, changed it, manipulated the text to make it appear Christological. One other very serious problem is that almost no Christian, learns Hebrew, certainly not as a child, none. In India, the only Christian that can speak Hebrew is a professor at a university. That's it. That's it. That means if you go to the major universities in India, in New Delhi, you could take biblical Hebrew, and the professor is probably a Jew who came in to get a job. But let's just say in a country of more than 1 billion people, the second largest country in the world, the largest democracy in the world, a country that's so large, and yet in that country, I don't know if there are 5 Christians in the whole country that are literate in Hebrew and could read the Hebrew Bible in its original language, although there are so many Christians. Now why? Because Indian children are not smart enough? No. They were robbed of an education, of the simple reading of the original language of the Hebrew Bible. Isn't that insane? That means you have so many Christian schools in India, so many, all over the country. I mean, in the areas where Christians live. And not one of them, not one, is teaching Christian children Hebrew. Oh, they learn English, and they might learn French, and all kinds of other ridiculous, but the Hebrew they don't learn. So therefore, all these Christians who fill stadiums in India. You know, in India you have Christian pastors that could fill a stadium of tens of thousands of people. Some of these pastors come from the United States. On private planes they come to India with empty suitcases. And when they leave India, their suitcases are full of money, full of jewelry that people give them, with promises that they'll have more money if they give them their money. I know this personally. They leave on private jets with suitcases full of money. And what happens is, tragically, the Indian Christians don't read Hebrew. That means they have no access to the original, and they have to rely on false translations, fake translations, not just English, but in the languages. There are many languages in India, as you know, and they've translated the Bible into those languages, and all those translations are completely corrupt. And therefore, Christians, my heart goes out to them. That's why I devoted my life to helping them, because they don't know any better. They don't go to the original. It's something so basic, so fundamental, is to go to the original document, not to go to a translation, which is really a commentary, in this case, a corrupt commentary.
I have something interesting to note here. You are saying that they do not go to the original Hebrew scripture. In fact, they do not go to the Tanakh portion of their Bible. So the
Right.
Christians of India do not want anything to do with the Tanakh as long as it suits their narrative. Only in very few contexts, if they want some kind of support to the statements that they are putting out, only then they go to the Old Testament. So when I point out that missing link between Tanakh and the New Testament, they say, oh, no, we do not have anything to do with Tanakh. All we are concerned with is what Jesus had to say and what Paul had to say and all the New Testament writers had to say. And you are talking about them not reading the scriptures, Hebrew scriptures, in its original language. Here I'm talking about not reading the Hebrew scriptures at all in whatever language.
That's very, very incisive. There are some, very few, but there are some, very few, but very, very few Christians have ever read the book of Ezekiel from beginning to end in their lives. Only a studious few that are in seminary. It's just unheard of to read Jeremiah just once in the whole life. Imagine, they believe this is the word of God. And something you find in India, and you also find in the Far East in general, I think you find it on the Asian continent more frequently, and that is that in hotel rooms, you might literally just have a New Testament that's there in the drawer in the hotel room, and maybe the book of Psalms, and that's it. And I never saw that in the United States, but I saw that in the East and throughout the Asian continent, that you have only the Christian Bible and maybe the book of Psalms, and that's it. And you're right, they memorize certain verses completely out of context. I'm going to say this. These Christians don't have a chance. They don't have a chance. That's why I have a very large YouTube channel that is very successful in reaching so many people, transforming their lives, because I help them let's go back to the original. And you're right, they're not reading the book of Isaiah once. They're memorizing certain verses by heart, even though they believe this is the Word of God. Even though the Christian Bible says, I'm prophesied in the Jewish Bible, Luke 24:44, and so on. So you're absolutely correct. They don't do that, and therefore their vulnerability is enormous.
When I used to be a child, when I used to go to church, I remember the priest telling that you should not read the Bible. Just listen to our sermons and what is taught in the church. Until the charismatic event came into India, Bible was restricted to the Catholics. The Protestants used to be very they used to use the Bible regularly, but the Catholics never used to use it. Since I work on the anti-conversion in projects, what they do, what the evangelicals carry, I question them, saying that you are converting people, gullible people who can't even read or write. Right? They are not educated. It's a far thing to read the Hebrew Bible. So I asked them this question. I said, whoever has converted, has he ever read the Bible once? So what the evangelicals say is this: it's not the knowledge of the Bible that is required, it is the faith. I fall off my chair. I've spoken about this aspect in every possible program in the past. And today, evangelical business is centered in the family. It's within the family. It's a mother, father, brother, sister, husband, and wife who run this church enterprise. I just wanted to let you know, recently the government of India seized several million rupees from an evangelical, a prominent evangelical who resides in Canada. Today, all the evangelicals have moved to the US. In the West, they're all sitting in the US and the West, and then they remotely control the churches in it.
So, whatever Jerome said just now about the scenario in India, evangelicals hoarding tons of boatloads of money, actually truckloads of monies, and then moving away to greener pastures to settle there and remotely control their finances, their income. That's coming from Indian churches. So, what kind of monies do evangelicals earn in Israel? Is money the motivation for their conversions of Jews, or is it something else?
It's something else. It's a very good question. So in Israel, it's completely different than India. There is no money that evangelicals hope to gain from people in Israel. None, zero. They leave with empty suitcases. All the money that is used to evangelize Jews in the land of Israel comes from North America. It's the opposite direction. They come with full suitcases, and they leave with empty suitcases. Evangelical Christians are pouring money in from South Korea, China, North America, and so on. And they're devoted to converting the Jews to Christianity, and not for economic reasons. But rather, they're here because they believe there are three reasons, essentially. Number one, they believe that the Jews play an integral role in Jesus' second coming. They believe, based on a passage in Matthew 23, that Jesus can't make his second coming unless the Jews are first converted to Christianity. They believe that only the mass conversion of the Jews to Christianity could enable Jesus' return. They don't believe that about people in India. It doesn't make a difference how many people in India, in the villages, all throughout Europe, it's a very large country, it doesn't make a difference. It won't bring Jesus' second coming. It has to be the conversion of the Jews because of what it says at the end of Matthew 23. I will not return unless you, and the you here is the Jews, say, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. So they, number one, want to convert the Jews to bring the second coming of Jesus. There is no money for them here. The only catch is, there is a caveat, and that is they cannot raise money in North America and South Korea in the East unless they're involved in converting Jews. So evangelical Christians around the world will pour millions of dollars, enormous amounts of money, into the missions here in Israel to evangelize the Jews who live here in the Holy Land. But they do not anticipate to take money from Jews here. They have no interest in that at all. They get their money from Christians abroad who sponsor this kind of effort. There is also, in addition, the New Testament says that you should go to the Jew first and then to the Greek. Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Paul says that, and Matthew says that in chapter 10. Don't go to the Gentiles, go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The third reason for the interest in Jewish evangelism is that the Jews pose a problem to the church. The fact that the Jewish people, of all people in the world, reject the claims of Christianity is very problematic for the church, always has been. And it's an issue that comes up in the Christian canon itself, because the Jews are the only people who are waiting for the Messiah. The idea of a Messiah is uniquely Jewish. No other nation had an idea of a Messiah that would come. The word Christ meant nothing to the Greeks prior to the advent of Christianity. The Jews are the only people that can read the Bible in its original language, and they're the only ones who are waiting for the coming of the Messiah. The Jews have a reputation of being a smart people. They have whether people like us or don't like us, people usually think of the Jews as being a pretty smart group. So here you have a group that has a reputation for their intelligence, a people who know their Bible in its original language, the very people who brought the idea of a Messiah to the world, the only people who read their Bible, and the only people who are waiting for the Messiah, and lived here in Israel. Who was here in Israel 2,000 years ago when Jesus lived? Who was here? Were the Eskimos here? No. Were there Native American Indians here? No, they weren't here. Who was here in the land of Israel? Jews. We met him. We met Jesus. And we concluded that he's not the Messiah. That is the worst nightmare for the church, because here you have the very people that were waiting for the Messiah, could read their Bible, and met who they claimed to be the Messiah, and we really, really could have used the Messiah 2,000 years ago. It would have been terrific, because Messiah means the end of the Roman Empire and a new life of freedom and liberation. And therefore, listen very carefully, it is only the conversion of a Jew to Christianity that can lend any credibility to the church, not the conversion of a peasant in India. That doesn't mean anything. It lends no credibility to the church. But the Jew, if you can even get one Jew, that's worth more than 1 million Indians, because they are the ones who can give Christianity a stamp of approval. No one else. And that's why they're here. So what is going on here in Israel is strikingly different than it was going on in India.